Hello everyone and welcome in a new video. In this video number 45 about Ansible, I'd like to show you how to install a Swarm cluster, how to begin to install a Swarm cluster with Docker, of course. This is the beginning of our practical exercise. We'll do it during many videos, about 4 or 5 videos. In this step, what we do, we just want to install our first manager, our first leader about our Swarm Docker cluster. So if you want, you can subscribe to my channel to not miss the next video. You can find the documentation about the Docker Swarm module, a very useful module if you want to manage or to install your Docker Swarm cluster. What we can do with this cluster, with this module, we can add or remove some nodes. We can manage a cluster to add a node or to change configuration. You can add some address advertising or other option. Some parameters about this Docker Swarm module. Advertise address. If you want to, this is where we can advertise your address, where you can expose your nodes about your Docker Swarm. Auto lock managers. This is a key, a specific key to lock data's managers. This is useful if you want to have a safe cluster. Some other parameters, CA cert or CA force rotate, client cert, client key. This is when you want to use certificate to have an authentication between your nodes. The default address pool. This is the range about your containers. This is the range of IPs, of course. Basically, Docker host, where we can find or you can join your cluster with Docker socket, Unix or TCP or SSH socket. The election tick. This is a delay to launch a new election. If you lose your manager, the delay to launch a new election. Heartbeat tick. This is the check frequency. And the join token, very useful. We'll use it in the next video. With the state equal to join, we use this token to join managers or to join workers pool. Keep old snapshots. This is the number of snapshots you want to keep in your history to restore your Docker Swarm cluster. Listen address. This is the interface that the socket used to listen. The name of your cluster, of course. Node cert expiry. If you use a cert, this is a delay of expiration, by default 3 months. The node ID, very useful, very important. When you want to remove a node, you need to use this ID to specify the node to remove it. Remote address. This is a list of clusters manager. Rotate managers token. If you want to activate a rotation of your token. The rotate of worker token seems the same for worker, like the manager token. Snapshot interval, the delay between each snapshot. And the state, very important, present, absent. If you want just to join a node to your cluster, remove it or just inspect it. And we'll see it later. in next video we use the output of this module because we want to get the token when we initiate our cluster. First of all, what we use for this practical exercise, we use Vagrant, of course. Our Vagrant file is here, and we have 7 nodes in our cluster. And to use it, we need to create a directory, like here. And we use swarm here, and of course we use ansible, and we just initiate our inventory, like here. This is inventory.yaml. I remove all the content of this file, and what we have the group named all, and children group. We have 2 children group, one managers with to begin we just use 3 nodes, and one group for our workers with 2 nodes. Okay, so I save it. And now what we want to do, we just want to install Docker. For it, we just initiate a new role with our CLI Ansible Galaxy in it. We just need to create a directory named roles, like here. And now Ansible Galaxy in it, and in roles we just want to create a role named Docker. Okay, it's okay, and now we can edit the role and our first task in the Docker role. We have the task, and in the task, what we want to add the GPG key with the module name apt key. We want to create and to use a variable named Docker repo key. And after it, we want to add this repository. Of course, we set these variables after to create our task. We add a repository with a variable Docker repo. And after it, what we do, we just want to install Docker. We'll see it we saw it in many previous videos, and to do it we use apt module with the state latest. We want to update cache, of course, because we add a new repository, and we want to add some packages with this variable Docker packages. And that's all, I think, to install Docker. And now what we want to do, we want to add some variables in the default directory of our role. So we go into our role Docker, and in the default repository we have the main.yml. Remove all the content. Yes. And what we have a first variable. This is a list with the Docker packages variable. we have the apt we want to install or to ensure we have installed apt transport HTTPS, here certificates, curl command, the software properties command, and of course Docker CE, Docker CLI, and containerd. We want to have Python 3 -docker to manage Docker with Ansible. Another variable, Docker repo, to set our repository here. And in this variable, what we want to fetch, to collect the Ansible distribution, and to use it, what we do, we use Ansible distribution fact, and we want to ensure to have a lowercase of it, and we use Ansible distribution release. In our case, this is a buster because we use Ubuntu. And after it, we add the Docker repo key. I think maybe we need to add a key also. Just I can check something. So I just want to check something like here. We just add a key. Where is it? This is in Swarm. Yes, this one. Yes, I need to have the key of our repository. So I had it here. Okay, I save it, and now what we want to do, we can edit a playbook file, playbook.yml here, and I remove all file, all the content of this file. So I set the name of our playbook, install Docker, for example, and we add the host. We want to install it on all of our nodes, manager or worker, and we use the become, and we set it to yes, and we add roles, and we use a role name Docker. Yeah. Okay, so now we can run Ansible -playbook -i. We add our inventory and we want to run our playbook. Okay, and of course we use the background user, and I haven't had an SSH key, so we can use the SSH password of our user vagrant. Also, yes, we can remove. Sorry, we can remove all the content of this one. So we can use SSH. Yes, we can go here. And now we can use again our CLI. We run all our command. So we had a GPG key on our 5 target server here. And we add the repository, and now what Ansible do, Ansible install Docker and dependencies. so that takes a few seconds. We can continue, and what we can do after it, we can add in our so let me open a new terminal, and in our Docker role, in the task, we can add here, we can add a new task to add our vagrant user in the Docker group. This is very useful if you want to run without sudo Docker CLI, and maybe we can start Docker, of course. Yes, we can go here, we can add here a new task to start Docker and to enable it. If you have a reboot of your server, you need to start Docker automatically. And after it, we can initiate our first node in our cluster. So this is like we initialize our cluster. To do it, what we do, we need to create a new role. So to create a new role, we reuse our init. So our init command. So ansible -galaxy init in roles directory, and we want to add swarm directory like here, and we can edit in the role swarm in the task. We can add a new task, and this is the first task where we use the Docker Swarm module. We want to have a state present to create and to initialize our cluster. In the second parameter, we use advertise address because we use vagrant, and vagrant use two interfaces, and we need to specify which interfaces we want to use for our cluster. And we register an output in output swarm, and we just want to run this initialize task on our manager, on only one manager, the first manager. And to do it, what we do, we just collect each node in manager's group, and we just want to use only the first index of this list. This is very, very important. So, and now we have Docker installed. We can run again. So I can remove this one. We can run again. No. We can edit our playbook. We want to use Docker, and we can add a new playbook to install swarm cluster on host role, and we use become. So we can just now we can add the role here, and we want to use the new role named swarm. So we run it again. We use the SSH password, and we can open a new terminal, and we can use vagrant SSH, and we can go into dependencies 1. And in the dependencies 1, what we have initialize a new cluster. So if you use Docker service ls node, Docker node ls. Now we can see we have just in our swarm cluster we have just one node, and this is our leader. We'll see in next video how to add other managers and other workers. Thank you for following this video. You can subscribe to my channel to not miss the next video, and I say to you goodbye.